Hello, friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hantz. Each week, I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Marcel Cole of Smile, the Story of Charlie Chaplin, and his newest show, Gareth Paisley. Smile is a dazzling one-man homage to a cinematic icon and arguably the greatest physical comedian of all time. With sellout shows and 5-star reviews across the globe, this is a joyful and poignant theatrical gem that celebrates the genius of Chaplin through mime, physical comedy, and daredevil tomfoolery. Audiences can expect to be blown away by a whirlwind of an hour inspired by physical storytelling recounting Chaplin's impoverished beginnings, rise to meteoric fame, and political exile in Switzerland. This is Fringe theater at its best, delivered with warmth, wit, and Marcel's signature mastery of physical comedy.
What do I think the Fringe is good for at the moment? For me, at least, I think it's a really great way to develop a show. And so where I'm at the moment is I think I've got a little bookshop in my mind and I write a show and I'll try and do maybe 50, 100 shows on the Fringe circuit. The stakes are a bit lower, you can take more risks and then develop the show, and then when I feel the show is really solid, then it's ready to go on the shelf of the Marcel Cole catalogue of shows. And if a theatre is interested in the catalogue, I can say, here are my shows that I've done, and then I put my attention back to the Fringe to develop my new show.
Marcel Cole spent 10 years training to be a ballet dancer, but then realized he had more fun making people laugh. And so now, after studying theater, mime, and clown in London and Paris, he is touring the world with his award-winning shows. Marcel, welcome to What the Fringe.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. So we met in 2025 at the San Diego Fringe because you were there. You got a big award to come over to the United States to do your show, San Diego, Hollywood. I can't remember. Did you do any other festivals while you were here? Just those two?
Just those two, but I went to visit my girlfriend Joy Lynn in Montreal while Joy Lynn was performing in the Fringe there. So that was nice to kind of also get a little glimpse into the Canadian circuit as well.
That's a fascinating circuit. I like the Canadians. They're super fun. We've talked about it on the podcast before, the famous hot tub boat experience.
Yeah, which is still one of my Fringe all-time highlights.
It's exactly what people are thinking it is. It's a boat with a hot tub on it.
Yeah, literally just in Mission Bay Harbor in San Diego. You're in a spa and then you jump off the boat into the water. It felt like proper celebrities.
It was so stupid. It was so much fun. And it went so slow. You just puttered around.
Yeah, and we got to steer it, which was great.
I know, so good.
Yeah, so thanks for organizing that.
Absolutely, so fun. Well, let's talk about you and your journey. So you began as a dancer, and I know this because I know you that your family are creatives. So were you just forced to love dance, or did you love dance? And how did you know that, okay, performing arts is what I want to do, even though my family's doing it as well? What inspired you? My
dad put my brother and I into ballet classes when I was 9. For a while, we just did what we were told. It wasn't bad. There were a few other boys in the class, so that was really good. And then when I was about 13, I had to choose between soccer and ballet. And my brother chose soccer and I chose ballet. So that was an interesting conscious choice. So you could sort of say maybe that's when I started thinking, okay, I like this. Yeah, from 13 or 14, I really got into it. And I did love it, but I also loved working hard and being really disciplined. And it was like I was hooked. I did love it, but in a sports sense, more than a creative sense. I wasn't doing any choreography. However, it wasn't just the athleticism. I loved performing.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you loved the discipline of it. And I think that speaks to you as an artist and kind of maybe what you put into a show, that's important.
Yeah, well, it sort of set the bar here for how much personal pain you can tolerate or how much of yourself I could be giving to things. And so after school, I went to a full-time school in New Zealand. and I was in the ballet course, and I was really struggling emotionally because for my ballet it was sort of the perfect place, but then I realized that I didn't want to be in a ballet company because all these ballets are boring. I'd rather do fun, interesting stuff and use my voice, and ballet is beautiful, but for me, I didn't want to join a ballet company. And then it became sort of, okay, well, there was ballet and contemporary. There were two streams in the school. But for me and my body, ballet was the challenge, and it was difficult, and it was kind of fun because it was hard. But then in contemporary, say, I could just customize it for my body. So in my year of ballet, I was in and out of the physio the whole year with sort of pains, knees, ankles, here, there, my back, hamstrings and stuff. In the contemporary course, I switched to contemporary, did not have a single injury the whole year. It kind of felt like cashing in my chips. It felt like the easy thing. I didn't want to let go of the hard route too soon. But then, of course, with contemporary dance, it's like, okay, sure, the technique's not so hard, but maybe what's more important is how you do it or what you're doing. And then enter the creative component comes in. And then I realized, heck, I wasn't interested in contemporary dance as a genre creatively.
Yeah. And then you found your actual voice. You're like, I want to talk. I want to make people laugh. What did that look like when you realized that that was very exciting to you as an artist?
I had a really good time in year 11 and 12 at school, my last 2 years of high school, because I'd be doing great. Whatever they do in Canberra, here in Australia, it was fantastic. By the end of year 12, I had 5 classes. 3 of them were drama. 1 of them was sports science, and the other one was dance. And then after school, I'd go and dance. It was amazing that you call that school. So I had a great time in high school because I really enjoyed doing lots of different things. Or perhaps I just really enjoyed the drama, because then I went to New Zealand, I went full time, and I wasn't singing, I wasn't acting or doing any theatre, and it was all dancing, and suddenly it was like, whoa, where's the fun gone?
Yeah. And so how did you decide to leave dance and like throw yourself into theater? And was it like straight into Fringe, or did you kind of dabble in other like theater performances locally?
Kind of worked out very fortuitously. I did 2 years full time in New Zealand. I went back for my 3rd year, got back, realized I just hated the building. It sort of takes a while to realize that you're kind of not happy somewhere if it's been a while since you were really happy and inspired by something. And so then in the first week of my 3rd year, before I had to pay my fees for the year, I quit and left the school, and then just got a job in Wellington. Actually stayed to watch the Fringe Festival there in February or March or something. And then it was COVID lockdowns, so I sort of had 24 hours to fly home from New Zealand. It was weird being in lockdowns and also being in a real sort of emotional transition, career transition, everything. Because I came back to Canberra, I'd been away for 2 years. I wasn't in touch with a lot of my friends in Canberra. There was a little drama school in Canberra, and I did a 6-month course, and that was great. That was all I needed to get back into it and think, this is fun. Because I was all full of doubts before that. I had hope in my heart for theatre, but when you see a show, you know if you like it or you don't like it. You can reason with yourself, whatever, but it's just as simple as you like it or you don't like it. And I didn't see a single show that I liked in Canberra and even in Sydney. That's a difficult position to be in, where you feel like you have these desires for something. You feel like it must exist and you don't know why it's not possible, but you just don't see it anywhere. And I think probably a lot of people have these kind of feelings in various different parts of their life. Then what it took was I did this 6-month course in Canberra, and that was good because it sort of got me into a rhythm, got me out of the house and stuff. And then I came out of that thinking, great, I want to do more of this, but still really struggling. And then in 2023, in January, I went over to London for the London International Mime Festival. And that was the last year of it in its traditional sense. I think it had been going for about 50 years. And with Brexit and stuff, it was getting a bit tricky to bring in a lot of international acts. So I did a 2-week clown workshop. I didn't know what the heck this clowning thing was. It felt like a big jump, but okay. I booked my flights, went to the Mime Festival, did this workshop and saw shows every night. And suddenly, for the first time in I don't know how long, every single show was good. For me, I was like, okay, great. And so then I was going to stay for 3 weeks in the UK, but after like the first or second week, I decided to stay for the rest of the festival, which was another couple of weeks. And then because I'd have to pay a lot more to book my flight back then, but it was the same price if I stayed for an extra month, I'd heard of this school, the Gaulier School in France, And I looked it up and they had their Buffon course and it was sold out, but I sent them an email and they had space. And so I went to the UK for a 3-week trip in January 2023 and ended up staying for 2.5 months, went to the Mime Festival, spent a month in Goliath. And Goliath, among all other things, I hadn't breathed fresh air in years. And suddenly it was like, great. There is a place where the quality is here, and if it's not, that's okay. But it gets abused with a sense of humor. Everything is suddenly real. It's not like there's shows down here where everyone's like, whoa, yeah, great, that was amazing. And so now I don't care if stuff is bad. If it's bad, you can laugh at it and then it becomes great. That totally changed my perspective on everything. And then I came back and I'd kind of been working on a show and I'd sort of gone into cabaret before I went to the UK. But I then did my first festival. I did Sydney Fringe in 2023. It went really well, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, and did you do Smile at Sydney, or was it a different show?
No, that was my first show, which was called The Ukulele Man, which was a musical comedy about the life of the Northern English wartime ukulele player and wartime comedian George Formby. English people will remember him, but it's crazy because he was like the most famous because comedy was the big thing in the Second World War. And then after that, people were ready for more serious drama. But there was enough drama in the war, so in the 30s and 40s, everyone just wanted comedy.
Yeah, because they were like, I need to escape. I need art to help me.
Exactly. And so he was massively famous then, and then kind of with a lot of other wartime stuff got forgotten. And there's a great story, and he's got hundreds of songs. And so it was like a jukebox musical using his songs. And I also did it with my mum. It was a duo. And she plays the piano and the violin and the bass ukulele and plays all the side characters. Most controversially, George Formby's wife, but yeah.
That's sweet. And then after that, you put Smile together.
Yeah, I have quite a special place in my heart for Sydney Fringe because I did the Ukulele Man there, got some awards, a touring award. If I hadn't got that, I may not have even just considered touring. But because I got the touring award, I was like, oh, well, heck, you never know what's possible until sometimes you just need a kick in the bum. And then 2 years later, you realize, oh, heck, I can just sign myself up to any festival in the world and I know what to expect. But I did Sydney Fringe and I did the Australian circuit for a year with the Ukulele Man. Started working on Charlie Chaplin while the Ukulele Man was doing Brisbane and a few other things. And then in September 2024, I did Smile for the first time.
You've had quite a success with that. We'll talk a little bit more about Smile in a minute, but I want to talk about the business of Fringe. As you were saying, like you toured the Australian circuit and then now you're getting a rhythm of touring kind of the world circuit, right? Because they're a little flip-flopped in Australia and then in Northern Hemisphere, right?
Yeah, like the festivals are in the summer. So you've got Southern Hemisphere summer and Australia is massive for Fringe. Like Adelaide and Perth are the second and third biggest festivals in the world. Sydney, Melbourne, and Melbourne Comedy Festival is very big. So yeah, Australia is a very good place for festivals. And then you've got the summer in Australia, and then as it gets colder, everything in the Northern Hemisphere is just getting started.
Yeah, I know quite a few Fringe artists that do that, flippity-flop around and make this kind of a year-long thing. So tell me like how you kind of use the circuit to your advantage. What does that strategy look like?
One thing is building a personal following. So that is one thing for me I found really works, for instance. So the festivals allow me to connect with people and then I will keep in touch with people through email and stuff. And so I can kind of build a bit of a fan base kind of in each city. So that's really good. And that's something that builds from year to year. Another thing, now that I've sort of spent 3 years on the circuit, you meet a lot of people who are using the festivals in different ways, and for better and for worse. A lot of people are struggling to make it work as a job. So I think where I'm at the moment is I think the Fringe is a bit of a gamble because you really don't know how a show is going to go. And so, for instance, a show like Smile sells well enough that now I'm finding which venues to perform it at. The Fringe is a great way to learn about your show. It's a great way to find your audience. What do I think the Fringe is good for at the moment? For me, at least, I think it's a really great way to develop a show. And so where I'm at the moment is, I think I've got a little bookshop in my mind, and I write a show, and I'll try and do maybe 50, 100 shows on the Fringe circuit. The stakes are a bit lower, you can take more risks, and then develop the show, and then when I feel the show is really solid, then it's ready to go on the shelf of the Marcel Cole catalogue of shows. And if a theatre is interested in the catalogue, I can say, here are my shows that I've done, and then I put my attention back to the Fringe to develop my new show. I'm building a relationship with a few theatres, and I'll do... Last year I did a Ukulele Man tour in northern New South Wales, and now I'm in touch with the same touring organisation, and they basically say, what other shows do you have?
Yeah. I mean, that's like the dream, right? Like you're getting to try it out at Fringe and then grow beyond that, where you're not having to do as much hustle, but you're kind of taking it beyond Fringe too.
Yeah, it's like, where does Fringe sit in the industry? If you want to sell tickets, you kind of need reliability. I don't think anything is going to get commercial in a massive way unless it's Saturday Night Live or something, and that's part of it, and people know that it hits enough to make it worth the misses, which is different to Fringe, because the whole point is that anyone can do it and that you could see anything. And the problem with that is there is no guarantee of quality. And that's not a problem, because for creativity, that's really good, because you don't want the pressure of having to have a quality.
There's relief in that, because not everything is going to be a hit. And even like what you were saying earlier at your clown school, being like, we fail and then we all laugh at it. And there's like, we're hard on it. But the fact that there are spaces where things can be rough and ready and can be works in progress, and the theater isn't having to rest on that. Like when you've got a commercial theater, or here in the States, we've got nonprofit theaters who are relying on ticket sales and relying on donations. And if you have a flop, it's not good. It's not good for the budget, but it's not good for the rest of the season. And how are people going to respond? And are they going to keep renewing their tickets if you keep producing duds and fringes, and you don't have that same pressure at all?
Yeah, you're not like, when you go to, say, the Apple store, it's not hit or miss whether or not the product will work.
Right.
Maybe in terms of an industry or whatever, it's going to work best if you have a theatre and people can rely on everything they see at that theatre being good. So then all they have to worry about is choosing something that the subject matter interests them or something. Or even they could sort of see everything at the theatre, knowing that even if they don't like it, they don't have to like it, but it was well prepared, there was time and energy put into it. It was a proper show. It's not like they sort of came up with it the night before. And it's tricky because people complain that, for instance, in Adelaide or Edinburgh as well, or a lot of the bigger festivals, they complain that the festival is becoming more commercial. And they'll say that sort of back in the day, it used to be every second year, Adelaide Fringe, it used to be 3 weeks. There used to be a lot more independent indie stuff, and it didn't used to be as expensive to do, like a lot easier to cover your costs. But also the problem is also the artists are making the festival more commercial. Me as an artist, I am making the festival commercial if I'm trying to live off it. So then am I the problem?
That is interesting to think about. I'm going to file that one away and think about it. That's so good. Well, let's talk a little bit about your shows. We've been doing Smile. We've been talking about that one for a while, which is the story of Charlie Chaplin. And what drew you to want to do that particular story?
A few things. His biography, Charlie Chaplin's autobiography, I love. I think is a really beautiful book, and I read that actually when I was training in New Zealand. I found that in partnership with a box set of his films, and I basically was shocked. I discovered a whole world of, I knew trips over, falls over, turns around, tips his hat, whatever, whips the cane. That's what I knew. But I discovered that there were films, like feature films. I never in a million years would I've guessed that Charlie Chaplin made feature films. I mean, I didn't really know enough about the history of cinema to sort of know when shorts stopped and feature films started. But yeah, I had no idea that there were full-length feature silent films, hour-and-a-half long silent films that are really good as movies. Another thing, like he made talkie films. Like, who knew Charlie Chaplin made talkie films? And then he made films not as The Little Tramp. So he made Monsieur Verdoux, where he plays this guy with a moustache, and he's a Bluebeard, and he marries old ladies and murders them for their inheritance to support his wife and disabled child who live in the country. And then he also, there's another character in the play who is an arms dealer, and then there's a big trial at the end of the film when he is on trial for murdering, he gets caught for murdering all these old ladies, and he's saying, look at this arms dealer, he's a national hero, how many people has he murdered? But if I murder 5 people, I'm a villain. Of course, I guess it's not meant to be taken totally literally. And because of this kind of film, then he's not too popular in the US, and he gets booted out of the US in 1952 and spends the rest of his life living in Switzerland and keeps making films, but the films aren't released in the US because they're boycotting his films because he's sort of criticizing capitalist military-industrial complex. And then finally he gets kind of forgiven after 20 years away. He gets given an honorary Academy Award for the incalculable effect he's made to making motion pictures the art form of the 20th century. And there's a very emotional sort of 12-minute standing ovation.
You know, when I was watching your show, because I saw it in 25, and you go into that a little bit, like you kind of hit on everything that you just said. And I had a really hard time watching that end part of the show. Had I seen the show in 24, I would have been like, that was an interesting part of American history. But watching it in 25, I was like, history's starting to repeat itself. And yeah, it was just a very poignant show. And it was hard in good ways. Like most of it's just delightful, funny. And then you kind of get to that part. And as an American having to process that and go, oh, here's where we are again, was a lot to take in because I hadn't experienced that in my lifetime yet. And I really appreciated the show for that. I liked being uncomfortable. I liked it being hard. And I think it probably falls very differently in America versus maybe where it was in Edinburgh or in Australia, just because our country is doing some stuff right now.
Yeah, but also in Australia, half the news is American news. So like there's that kind of American news is world news. It's bizarre. I wrote the show, I put pen to paper in January 2024 and premiered it in September 2024. But I've sort of worried, I've got to get my shows in quickly because how long is it going to stay relevant? But the joke is that as every year goes on, it just...
It's a little more relevant than it was last year.
To be fair, if you do a show about authoritarianism and dictators and war and stuff, like you've got a career for life because it's always going to be relevant. That was really interesting too, because there's like footage, I put Nazi rallies and Nuremberg rallies and sort of big tank advances with hundreds of tanks, quite harrowing footage, but also it's grainy, it's black and white, and it's from 1945, it's nearly 100 years old. So it's sort of a distant world, but then it's crazy that kind of the world was modern enough then to resemble, like the tanks essentially look the same as they do today. Because in the US, like when I was performing there last year, there was the No Kings rally about, I think, what was it, Trump's military parade in DC. And it was bizarre because, so I have this footage and stuff in my show, and it's basically taught, like Charlie Chaplin has some famous speeches about dictators and stuff. I was catching the train to the venue on the day, and the train went through downtown LA, and I look out the window and I see 10, 15 sort of military armoured trucks and then like 30 sort of soldiers with machine guns lined up. And then you go around and the train is full of people sort of ready to protest with their like balaclavas on. But it's so bizarre thinking, heck, this is where the drama is. Like, who wants to go to some stupid pretend theatre show? Like, this is real drama. I was like half tempted to just abandon my show and get off the train or something and get amongst it. But then the train, kept going, and you see all these roads blocked off with like hundreds of police cars and stuff. Anyway, and then you go into LA and it's like a different city. It's like nothing's happening. But then I did my show and it was so funny. It's like, I don't know, it's in Australia, but it was so funny because he's got his great dictator speech where he says, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone." Everyone in the audience, that has never happened anywhere else. But that happened in LA.
Yeah. Land's different in different cultures. That's really fascinating. Well, let's spend a few little moments talking about Gareth Paisley, which is your new show. We were talking a little bit about it. Is it a persona? Is it a character? Is it an alter ego? Is it just a fun show? Because I want to say I met Gareth briefly last year at San Diego Fringe. He made a little appearance. But tell me about this show. What's the basis for it?
So Gareth Paisley was born around 1950. Essentially, he's an ex-porn star who now performs in aged care homes. So he sort of thinks he's Elvis Presley, and he tours the international aged care circuit. Which is funny because I was performing at an aged care home, at a nursing home the other day with my first show, The Ukulele Man. We performed at 10 a.m. This is my show, The Ukulele Man, and I did my show at a big theatre, and then the next day a nursing home got in touch. And so I do the show at 10 o'clock there. We arrive at 9 o'clock to set up, and there are already 25 people sitting, just watching in the dining room, watching forwards where this performance is going to be. And they just watch us set up for an hour, and then we do the show. And of the 30 people who were there, about 2 of them clapped. I think everyone really enjoyed it, but then you find out that Les, who's been sitting there the whole time, it turns out that he's 96. Bizarre and very good research for my Gareth Paisley writing.
You're like, yeah, I'll take this gig. I'm going to do this show here. Let's see what this is really like.
When I'm at home, I live with my parents and my grandma as well, who has quite advanced Parkinson's and dementia. She's basically needs a lot of care, 24/7. I think she's potentially very heavily inspired this show, finding a lot of humour in aged care. And you realise that the show ends with basically Gareth rebrands the aged care home as the Las Vegas, the home of old and retired show people. Anyway, so it ends up being Vegas whores. It's Vegas, and he's like, you think you're at the end of the line, you think you've seen it all, you think the best days are behind you. Think again. Life's just getting started. A bright light city gonna set my soul on fire. I've got a whole... Anyway, and he's sing Viva Las Vegas. And it's all Elvis songs in the show.
That sounds like so much fun.
There's bingo and blackjack and the roulette wheel, a fortune won and lost with every deal, and mashed potatoes served with every meal. So viva Las Vegas. It's really good to to live with your grandparents, because you kind of see basically where life is going. You see where you're going, because I think a lot of the time you can old people just get locked away and live in aged care homes and stuff, and so then all you see in your life is kind of childhood, you see your teenage years, whatever, and then the main bulk of your life or whatever, and then you sort of just try not to think about retirement or what happens after retirement. You just try and avoid, but it's there regardless. So
does the show have a little bit of heart to it then, if we've got your grandmother and we're talking about aged care homes? There's got to be goofiness and a little bit of heart to it?
Ideally a lot of, I think, because the clowning stuff has really helped me kind of find where humour sits and stuff, but also because I come from ballet. I keep going back and forth to the Goliath school in France, and last year I did the Greek tragedy course, and I did quite well in the course, and I think because I've spent 10 years sort of trying to find the tragic element in classical ballet is about being tall, it's about taking up space, it's about the characters you play, like Spartacus. They're all sort of epics. I mean, not all, but it's kind of in the fairy tale epic dimension. Basically, when you go on stage, you become superhuman, gravity doesn't exist. So then the Greek tragedy was a drama, but with the same kind of feelings of speaking to the gods and everything. And now what I particularly enjoyed was that if you do that, if you are playing something dead set, like this means the world to you, your life is at stake, but you just happen to be wearing a slightly ridiculous costume, or someone is giving you a foot massage while you do it. That, for me, I was like, yes, I love this kind of humour. Because it can very quickly oscillate between, okay, great, they know it's ridiculous. It can very quickly swap between the ridiculous and the quite moving. And then especially when there are examples in the world of, you see where someone will be doing something hilarious and everyone's laughing, but then something flips and you realise that the person doesn't realise that they're laughing and the person is genuine. And he's like, stop, because they're like, stop laughing. Everyone's like, this person's so good. They're like, stop laughing, it's not a joke. Everyone's like, and then you can realise that they're actually not joking. And then there's a really kind of disturbing, sad part. There's a great video. There's a guy called Michael Lewis, and you can watch his X Factor auditions. And because it's X Factor, they totally mess with your psychology. So he comes on and they know that he's never going to win X Factor. They would have known that before they got him on in front of like 2,000 people or whatever. But he comes out and he does his Michael Jackson impression. And he looks, just to be really blunt and a little bit nerdy, you're not quite sure, which is good for kind of the theatre or whatever, because you're instantly not quite sure how much he knows. You're not sure if he knows exactly how we see him, which is good for the theatre. And then he comes out and he does this, and there people are saying like, oh, well, your costume's not very good. And he says, no, this is really good, or whatever. The judges sort of start provoking him, and then okay, well, let's see your act. And he does his act, and his dance moves are like quite good. Like he's not taking the piss. Not at all. And his dance moves are sort of quite good, and you're like, oh, and they cut to the audience. The audience is like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And then he starts singing, and his singing is, in an X Factor way, his singing is dreadful. He's out of tune, but it's so hard to sing like that. He would have to be really brilliant to be putting it on. And so then he sings, and then after like 30 seconds or a minute, they cut it. And they're sort of saying, okay, Michael, sorry, but that was really bad. And they tell it to his face, and it's a very sort of messed up show or whatever. And he's like, I disagree with you. I think Michael Jackson would have been proud. Or so, like he goes on, and they're saying, Michael, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go. And then he's like, no. And he starts fighting back, and they're like, Michael, please leave the stage. And he's like, no, I belong here. I'm not going anywhere. This is I can't handle, I don't like the negativity in the room. And then the audience is like, boo, get off. And he's like, this is negativity. Anyway, it's on YouTube. And then eventually he goes off. And then the next year he comes back and has another audition. Anyway, but he comes out and they're like, oh, wait a second, we recognize you from last year. And then he comes out and he says, yeah, but this year I'm not hiding behind a mask. I'm not doing Michael Jackson, I'm doing Michael Lewis. And he comes out and he sings this song, and he's like almost really good. He's like, and he comes out and he's like pelvic thrusting, and like it's almost good, but it's hilarious. But it's brilliant because then he just doesn't leave this. Anyway, it's real. But the producers know that it's a bit kind of thing, because like everyone in the audience thinks it's the worst act, but then he's probably got so many more views. First, he made it onto the show because it's provocative, because it's like memorable. And of all the acts, if you saw a show, of all the acts, you'd be talking about the guy who wouldn't leave the stage, who got booed off. Like that's the drama of it. The difficulty though then is if you're doing a show like that in a Fringe festival, people don't necessarily realise that they have a great time, because they'll say, don't see that show, it's horrible, even though they like had a great time because of how bad it was. So then you have to like reframe it as, you have to be a bit commercial in your marketing and stuff and say, so this comes back to Gareth Paisley, is it an alter ego or whatever? Like, I think it's clearer if I say, okay, Marcel Cole is coming to the festival. Marcel Cole's an award-winning like character actor and comedian coming to the festival with his brand new show about Gareth Paisley. But then you have to have good stuff in it so that people know that it's bad. Anyway, that's a whole thing.
It's very clown. Well, we're excited to see how that one pans out. We've got to get to our last question, which is, what's your most interesting, awkward, or heartwarming Fringe interaction? Now, you've been doing this for a while.
A woman in Edinburgh. I was riding along on my bike. I got a bike in Edinburgh, and I think I must have been in costume. And a woman, an old lady, probably in her 70s, I rode past her on the street, and she either made eye contact or stopped me or something. And it turned out that she really wanted to see my show, but couldn't, because last year the whole run sold out very quickly, which is amazing. But she really wanted to see it, and her friends had recommended it, but she couldn't. When I first met her, I was like, oh, well, I'll come back next year. And she's like, I'm not sure if I'll be here next year. She said she'd driven like 5 hours or so. Anyway, something ridiculous. But it turned out that I had a spare comp for the next day. And so then I said, hey, okay, I'll give you a comp. What's your name? I'll leave you a comp at the door. Or I might have sent it to her. And so then she came and I saw her on the way out and she was like, thank you so much. And then I did my show the following day after she saw it. And I come out and I shake people's hands as they leave. And then this woman comes up and it's her. Then she came back the following day and gave me a card and a present and said how much the show meant to her, and she started crying. So that was very sweet.
What a beautiful Fringe story, and just what Fringe is about, the power of connection and artists connecting with audience. I mean, that's a huge part of what Fringe is about, right? And like having those little magical moments. You made a lifelong memory for her, for sure. All right. Well, Marcel, thank you so much for joining me today on What the Fringe. It's been really, really fun to chat all things Fringe with you today.
Thank you, Lauren. We could go on for hours.
I know. All right. Well, Gareth Paisley is going to be premiering this June at the Montreal Fringe. So if you're there, you're going to want to go check out what we've been chatting about. And then Smile is going to be touring the UK this July through September. Stops in Chipping Norton, London, Edinburgh, Southwest Scotland, Switzerland, Hertford, and back in London. So if you're there and you want to go see an amazing show, go check that out. And you can keep up with Marcel on Instagram at Theatre Marcel and on Facebook at Theatre Marcel. And you'll be able to see all of those performance dates and get your tickets. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hantz. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound. And our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. And keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. What the Fringe is growing, this little grassroots project of mine, which is very exciting, starting to get noticed on the worldwide Fringe circuit. Give myself a little pat on the back, but I have to remember,
I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone.